Hi there, this is BJ Man with a quick interview, actually a fairly decent interview for the day for my publishing journey. And we have a special guest. His name is Peter Holmquist. And let me read a quick bio about him. Peter Holmquist is a self publishing powerhouse who turned an unexpected life setback into a thriving career on Amazon KDP. After what he describes as a skiing accident that forced him to reevaluate his path, he discovered a new purpose in the world of self publishing driven publishers. With nearly a decade of experience in the self publishing space, Peter has published over 1,500 books and generated more than $4 million in revenue through KDP. In addition, he founded Driven Publishers, a vibrant KDP community he runs on platforms like School, with thousands of members who benefit from his mentorship and publishing strategies. His mission, helping others achieve freedom through self-publishing. How you doing, Peter?
Doing great. Thank you very much for that nice introduction, BJ. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. One second. I hear myself in the background. Do you can you lower that volume possibly?
Can you test
Yeah,
now?
perfect.
It works better?
Okay, yes. Okay,
All right.
so let's get started with your origin story. What's your story and how you got started in the online business world and finding your path in publishing?
Yes, absolutely. So let's go back about 10 years. I was working in a fish factory in Norway, and I was working long days, 12-hour days. I was doing different tasks at this fish factory. At one point, I was making boxes for 12 hours a day. At other points, I was at the front of the line, and at one point, the bosses of the fish factory they came to me and they said, "We will need to decrease your salary." And I think that was the breaking point. I was already feeling like a cog in a machine, but this was a confirmation that I was not at all in control. And I think that was the thing that made me realize that I need to change. I need to change strategy. I had a vision of becoming free. And in Norway, even in a fish factory, you earn a lot of money. So my strategy was to save myself to a certain amount of wealth and then perhaps invest in index funds. And then I would receive passive income that way. But I realized that this was a miserable way to get to my goal of freedom. So during that time, I read a book called The 33 Strategies of War. And it talks about one specific strategy called the death ground strategy, which is about burning your boats and putting your back against the wall. So he takes the example of Hernan Cortez when he wanted to conquer the Aztecs. His men, they wanted to retreat because the Aztecs, they were so many more. And but Hernan Cortez, instead of surrendering to the will of his men, he decided to burn the boats. So they had no retreat. And when they did that, they conquered the Aztecs because when you don't have a plan B, you get so much more motivation to achieve big things. And I wanted to implement this strategy, so I did. And I saw that entrepreneurship was a path to freedom. Of course, it also, in a way, first you have to put the chains on and work hard, but eventually, when you do it for long enough, it is in my opinion, the best path to freedom, and it is the fast lane compared to what I was doing before, which was working in the fish factory, saving up money. That's more the slow lane. So there's even a book called Millionaire Fast Lane where you can learn more about this concept. But in essence, what I said to myself was, I will make entrepreneurship work or I will go under in the process. And how I did that was that I bought a house in a new city where I didn't know anyone. I had 6 months of savings, and I wasn't allowed to make money from anything else than a business. So the business was going to be the thing that made me able to survive, eat, pay the mortgage, etc. So the first business that was started was a web shop selling lanterns. Bought an inventory and started shipping the products. Eventually got some sales, had to do some social media marketing to drive traffic. And I remember I got this big order of $1,500 roughly, and I was super happy. But then it turns out that the customer didn't pay the bill. And then I also had the issue that the lanterns would break in the mail and the shipping. I also competed on price, so there were no profits left over. But shortly thereafter, I started another business, which was cold calling companies in Sweden, and I was offering this service, and that worked. It made a profit, and it made enough for me to survive. However, I was completely miserable. I've been doing a lot of cold calling before this, but I'd always had colleagues around to joke with whenever someone was rude or whatever. But being sitting there alone in a room and just making calls all day, it was not a happy existence. And at the same time, it also wasn't that profitable. It was like I was working in a fish factory, but just with something even worse. So yes, I was free in the sense that I was making money on my own terms um, through a business, but it still wasn't what I was looking for. So during that time, I read a lot of books. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read The Richest Man in Babylon. And of course, I rediscovered, you could say, the idea of passive income. And primarily, the thing that I discovered was passive income online. And I know from your story, BJ, you sold ebooks on ClickBank, and that was how I first saw the way in to sell ebooks. So you create the ebook once, and then it will continue to sell. You don't have to deal with shipping and things like that. So I thought that was a great experience benefit. But the other thing that I saw that was a little bit limiting, which was similar to the web shop, was that I would have to drive traffic to this page. So that was another thing that I didn't like that much. And but eventually, short thereafter, I discovered Amazon KDP, and I could see right away. I looked at some interviews, success case studies of this course, you could say. It was on YouTube. I don't think those videos are no longer available, unfortunately. But there was one woman from India. She was making $5,000 a month. Another one from Norway. He was making $11,000 a month, and another one from India making $3,000 a month. So my idea when I saw that was, if they can do it, then I can do it. All I have to do is learn what they're doing. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't have to come up with a crazy, unique idea for a book and then spend 1 year writing it, because that was one story that the creator of the course, he told that he had been spending 1 year writing this book, and then he published it and no one wanted to buy it. And I think that's an experience for many authors. So instead, his approach was, okay, I'm going to find the market demand and then create a book based on that market demand. So I joined the course, and within 6 months, I was making $5,000 a month. Then I hit some roadblocks, and I eventually strayed. I stopped publishing completely after 6 months. I started doing affiliate marketing. I created a blog. I joined another course, and I also did some drop shipping. I think it was between Amazon and eBay, but nothing worked. And then in December, I looked back at publishing and I saw, okay, I'm not making that much. I'm not making $5,000 a month. I can't expect that because I hadn't touched it, but at least I was making 2,500. So then around that time, I listened to an audiobook by Earl Nightingale, and he said, there's nothing more sad than to see a man jump from opportunity to opportunity, not realizing that he stands in his own acres of diamonds, meaning that you might be already where you're supposed to be. You just haven't realized it yet. And I realized for myself that book publishing is where I'm supposed to be. It is what I understand. It's what I can get results with. I've proven to get results with it. So what am I doing looking for all these other things when I'm standing right at the place where I should be? And I also realized another thing, that even if something changes with book publishing, whether it's algorithm, whether it's rule changes, whether it's like recently that AI comes, whenever there's a change, we're likely to, at least I get a little bit fearsome sometimes. Oh, is this going to work even anymore? But if you calm down and you realize that as long as the fundamental business idea won't change, meaning that people will still be buying books after this change, then there really isn't that much to worry about, because all we need to do is to find out what are the people that are still selling books after this change doing. Because if people are still buying books, that means that there are publishers behind those books who will continue to make money. So I just, as much as possible, I aim to understand, okay, what are these people who have overcome this challenge, what are they doing? And in many cases they've documented, either through a YouTube video or through a course or something else, exactly how to solve the issue that we are facing as publishers. So that's my story of how I got into publishing.
Wow. When what year did you start and make 5,000? It seemed pretty quickly.
Yeah, I started in late 2015. My account was started in November 2015. I believe the first book was published in December, if I'm not mistaken, either late November or December. And then in May, I believe that was when I hit. So May 2016. So roughly 6 months, I was making
So
5,000.
most people struggle for years and years to get to that amount. How did you go from zero to 5,000? And how many books did you have? And what? How did you succeed so quickly? Somewhat.
I don't know exactly how many books I had, but I believe I was aiming to make $100 a month per book. So let's imagine that I had 50 books, probably around there. And in terms of the strategy back then, it was a bit different because we were primarily focusing on ebooks. So didn't do paperbacks at all. And we didn't do Amazon ads. So it's this category called Kindle short reads, where people are actively looking for short reads. And that was the strategy that worked for me.
Wow. So how did you, once you decided I'm going to go all in publishing now after venturing other opportunities and going full time, like how did you scale that business from 5,000 to 10,000 to, multiple five figures eventually?
That's a that's a great question. So if I were to say in the beginning, 0 to 1,000, it's just finding market demand, doing niche research properly, learn the ropes. It's okay to fail with your first books. Just keep doing the things to the best of your ability. Learn, keep moving. 1,000 to 5,000. It's about identifying what works. So, for example, my two first books, they made, I believe the first book made around $500 the first month. Second book made around $200 the first month. But then the books after that, I think they made less than $20 each. So the next 3 to 4 books. And that was because I completely neglected niche research, which I was doing very well for the first 2 books. So that's the main thing, is to not go too fast, and but at the same time you need to take imperfect action. So it's a balance, but at some point you want to analyze the work that you've done and identify, okay, what is working, how can I do more of that? And I think that's primarily between 1,000 and 5,000. Beyond $5,000 a month, I believe more and more you want to be building a team, you want to be hiring freelancers, so you're not doing everything in the business. I think that is key in order to scale, and also to increase the quality, because publishing, it has so many different areas. You have the manuscript, of course, but you also have niche research. You got writing description, which is copywriting. You have cover design, A plus content design. You have running Amazon ads. So if you're aiming to become a master at all these different topics, that will take a lot of time. And my strategy, what I prefer, is more so to find someone who's already mastered the thing. And therefore, because let's say I hire a professional cover designer, instead of me sitting for hundreds of hours trying to learn Adobe Photoshop or whatever software, and also revising covers here and there with my limited design knowledge, aiming to make something that doesn't even look good. Instead of doing that, I can just go to someone who is educated as a designer, someone who has all the softwares, has all this experience, has all the skills, and just pay them. And then that way I will get a much better quality of product at the end. So that's the main thing at this point. And then beyond 10K a month, I would say it's about building a system, continuing to hire, but also make it so that the people that you are hiring, they're not dependent on you at every stage. So one big thing for me was, of course, hiring an editor, so I don't have to be the one going through all the manuscripts. In the beginning, I was writing a lot of manuscripts myself. So then it was hiring a writer, but then eventually also hiring an editor, and then also replacing myself as the communicator or file sender. So whenever the editor is finished, instead of her sending me the file, she's sending the file to whoever is next in line, whether that is the formatter or the manager. And also the writer can communicate directly with the editor instead of me having to be the middleman all the time.
Wow. Just to get an idea, you got over 1,000 plus books over the years. What was the process um, like every month? How many books did you do, and what was the process to create and finish the book? That's such a large scale.
Yes, it's publishing is a very linear process. And to preface this, a lot of those books that are published, they are also translations. So they're not original English titles, all of them. Some of them are Spanish, German. I did a little bit in French, but primarily the the way to scale while still maintaining quality is to break down everything into components, into steps. And what is the first step of book publishing? It's market research, which is something I always have done and probably something I will continue to do, because I believe that finding market demand and also finding a unique way or a better way to create a product that will give a better reader experience and will be wanted more by the readers. I think that's the most crucial step, because like we talked about in the beginning, a lot of authors, they create a book that they think is great, but when they publish it, they are often disappointed that the market doesn't respond to it. So just because we think we have a great idea doesn't mean the market thinks we have a great idea. So market research I do myself, but then after that we have the outline. So the table of contents, for example, what will be included in the book, how will it be structured, etc., etc. If we're hiring a writer, we might have specific instructions for the writer: write in this style, write to this target audience, etc., etc. This I did a lot of myself, and now we can use tools like AI to help with this. But I still, at this point, I have a guideline creator who does research. I do believe she leverages AI now, but primarily it's about finding out, okay, if we read the customer reviews of the existing products or existing books on Amazon, what complaints do we see? What do people like? What do they don't like? What do they want more of? Etc., etc. So based on that, we create the outline. The next step is, okay, it's creating the book. It's writing the manuscript or designing if we're doing medium or low content. And that I like to hire writers who are native English speakers. For medium content, of course, you can hire a designer and someone who knows how to work with different softwares. Then we have cover design, and then we have formatting, and then we have publishing, and then marketing. So if we see here this whole process, it's different steps, and all we need to do is, okay, where do we get stuck? Okay, market research, I can do market research. Let's say I put 3 hours every day, 5 days a week. I will find a lot of profitable places on Amazon, let's say. And so that will not be the bottleneck, at least not for me. And then the next bottleneck might be, okay, we need guidelines for these topics. And another thing that might stop this is if you have a brand, maybe all of them do not fit in the brand. So it can be a little bit more complex depending on your strategy. But to keep it simple, the next step is outline creation. Usually that's not a bottleneck as well. And so that is usually not something that's stopping us from scaling. Hiring writers or working with writers or creating the manuscript, this is something that can keep you stuck, especially when it comes to delivering quality. I know a lot of people that are writing or creating their own books. It's hard for them to let go because when they've tried hiring a freelancer or writer and they don't get the same results. Now, at this stage, one word of encouragement is to keep going because I do not believe that there is no one that can't replace at least a part of the process. So even if someone is creating the book themselves, perhaps there are repetitive things that you do over and over again, especially if you're publishing the same type of book, the same book type, the same in the same niche for the same target audience. So perhaps there's some part of the book creation process that you can outsource. I know Andre, for example, inside DP, he does the first 10-15% of the book himself. He does the structure, everything, and then he does the ending of the book, and then also he reviews. So the repetitive work, which is not that hard for someone else to do. He just lets them do. And that way he's saving, instead of it taking 10 hours to create this medium content book, it now takes him 2 hours, let's say. So that's a great way to avoid that bottleneck. Then we have the next step, which is cover design. Also, I wouldn't say that's a bottleneck. There are many great designers out there. What can become a bottleneck is the reviews. So getting reviews, that is something that keeps people stuck. My personal favorite way of solving this is through building a brand, building an email list, and getting reviews that way. Amazon ads is the next step. I also wouldn't say is a bottleneck. What can be a bottleneck, of course, in all this is the funds. So when you are creating a book, you want to take into consideration that you want enough money to promote the book properly. So that means running Amazon ads. And now my strategy has shifted, especially with the rise of AI. I don't think the quantity approach is that effective anymore. I think it more so is about creating high impact books, meaning that the books that you do publish, they really hit the spot in terms of being that one solution that the target audience is looking for, to be that book that could become the top book in the category. And I think that's more important nowadays.
That was an awesome explanation of the entire process of publishing in a very linear way. Now, I want to go into detail for some of these components because I'm curious myself, such as niche research, market research. What are the criteria you're looking for, generally speaking, that is a good niche topic?
So on Amazon, we can see the BSR, the bestseller rank. I think that's the main thing we want to look at. I know some people they talk about search volume. Throughout these 10 years, I've never looked at search volume. I only look at the BSR. Now the BSR can be a little bit misleading. It wasn't as misleading before, but now a lot of people they are running high ad spent strategies, meaning that they're spending a lot of money, they're not making a profit just to push down the bestseller rank. But overall, the bestseller rank, especially if you got a tool such as Bookbeam or Helium 10 or some other tool where you can see the BSR history, if the book has been at a low BSR for, let's say, over 1 year, then you know that the publisher is most likely making a profit at this point. So it's more so the first 2 months, publishers are often willing to be in the red in terms of making a profit. But in terms of BSR, I would say ideally, if you can find below 80K BSR, 2-3 books, I think that's great. Now, another factor is to look at the competition. I know back when I started, is there a big author behind these books? That's obviously something that can be hard to replicate for us as self-publishers. So that can be something to take into consideration if they're driving a lot of outside traffic. Then maybe we don't use that book as a measurement or as a something that is a positive signal. But other than that, we look at the reviews. Okay, how many reviews do the books have? What is the not the only the quantitative data, so meaning the number of reviews of the ratings, but also what is the cover like? Can we make a better cover, or can we have a better angle, or can we have a unique angle? Perhaps there's a need in the market that is not being fulfilled by the current books, and I think that that is one of the main things I look at besides the BSR is can I be better or can I be unique with the book that I will publish?
Do you look at the first 10 results or first 20 results and look for two books that are 80,000 BSR, top 10 or top 20?
I look at the first 10 primarily, but it depends. What you want ideally is the exact keyword match, meaning that if you search, for example, gardening for kids, you
Right.
ideally want to only look at books that have gardening for kids.
Oh,
So you might, depending on the popularity of the topic, you might see other keywords that are showing up for gardening for kids. I think for gardening for kids, it will mostly be exact matches. But let's imagine that it were to show a book called uh, "Climbing Trees" for kids, then obviously that would not be something that we factor in when we do the market research because it's not related to gardening for kids, even though it's ranking for gardening for kids, most likely because people have purchased that book after searching for that keyword phrase.
okay. Let's move on to the book. I like how you mentioned nowadays it's all about quality and you really want to answer and solve their problem. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, let's say you found a topic. I know sometimes we use chair yoga or vertical gardening or whatnot. How would you make that book? And let's just say that's a good topic, although it's saturated. How would you make that book really the best as possible and solve that problem?
It's a great question. So the first thing we want to look at is what are the existing books offering? What are their angles? If everyone is doing a gardening for beginners book, then perhaps that's not the best angle for us to take. Then maybe we can look at other longer tail keywords such as gardening for kids, or like you mentioned there, vertical gardening. Perhaps there's a specific type of gardening that we can go after. But let's say we have identified that gardening for beginners, it's still a decent keyword, a decent topic to go into. Then we got the subtitle. What can the subtitle be that will still make us have an advantage? And perhaps the other books, they have black and white images. So that could be something that we can then improve in our books. So it comes down to also reading the reviews, doing a bit of market research, looking at the description, opening the book, reading the sample of the book, looking at the table of contents. Okay, it's black and white images. What if I do a colored edition? And then perhaps it's lacking images. What if we make an illustrated guide or a step-by-step guide or a complete guide? Or what if we take an angle, let's say it's a cookbook. What if we do with the 5 ingredients or less? Or what if we do with the 10 minutes? You can make the dishes in 10 minutes or less. So you find these gaps in the market. And then based on that, you create the structure of the book, which is the first step. So what will be included in the book? And the primary thing to think about here is who is the target audience and how does the target audience wants to be talked to? If it's a kid, it doesn't make sense that we create the text like a Wikipedia page, just a bunch of text. Kids, they want it to be simple to read. So the word choices we use, the sentences, and everything like that. Obviously, a lot of images is often good, and so we think about the target audience and we adjust how we create the book, how we write the book based on that. And then After that, we look at, okay, what will be included step by step, and how can it be organized in the most logical way. And this is one thing I like about your approach, is that you're hiring writers who are passionate about a certain topic, and then they are creating the books based on what they have experience in. So I think that's a really good thing, because when you have someone with experience about the topic, they will see things with much different view. So they will be able to logically arrange the content in a way that makes sense. Now, one thing to be careful with, the caveat, is when you're hiring someone who's at such a high level, let's say a professor, they might actually not write the best to the target audience, because they are so proficient at this skill that they are just talking over people's heads, and that's not what you want. So you still have to be there as a publisher to ensure that they are still using their skills to explain it in the most simple way possible. So one thing I think is crucial is to realize that people nowadays, they have so many distractions. They have social media, and they don't have the patience that they had a couple of years ago even. So you want to think value per second. How can we make the reading experience so that every sentence fulfills a purpose? So there's no waste, there's no unnecessary fluff or unnecessary repetition, but every sentence is there for a purpose. And when we do that in combination with using visuals or graphs or tables or anything that can make the learning experience easier, I think that's when we're on the right track.
That's amazing. Generally speaking, nowadays at your level, what are the criteria you're looking for in terms of like the word count of the nonfiction book? How many pages? Is it 6 by 9? What size? Just short points on those.
I think 30,000 words is a good balance for, especially if you're in the beginning stages. When I started, it was 5,000 words, but again, that was for short Kindle ebooks only. For paperbacks, I would not recommend that at all, because then you will get complaints that it's like a booklet. So I think 30,000 words, that ends up being around a little bit over 100 pages in six times nine format, which is something that I think is good to use. If you have a lot of big images, then using a bigger format such as 8 times 11 or 11.5, that can be good as well. But also with 30,000 words, if you're doing, for example, ACX, so audiobook publishing, your audiobooks will be priced at 14.95. So Audible, they price the books based on the length of the book, and you want to be ideally above 3 hours so that you're priced 14.95 instead of, I think it's 6.95. So I think it's a sweet spot with still being able to provide enough value without being repetitive and including fluff necessarily. So,
Now, if the
but
topic requires images, how many images do you like to put? And you do color, right?
it depends on the topic. It depends on the target audience. If it's for kids, it's usually more images, and if it's for kids, also probably go in full color. One thing with KDP that you want to think about is the printing cost. So unless it motivates the increased price that the customer will pay, if it doesn't motivate the increased price, I will not use colored images. So, for
Okay.
example, if it's a regular nonfiction book where the image being in color doesn't add that much value, then I would just keep it black and white. But if it's a um, crucial point that will give a much better experience, for example, cookbooks, then it can make sense to do it in color. I think otherwise you might get complaints. Same with for kids. I think that can also make sense, but you would have to balance, because then maybe you will have to make the pages a little bit less, because the printing cost is based on the number of pages.
Right.
So. Yeah.
Let's move on to another component of publishing that's important: advertising and marketing. What are your lessons specifically for Amazon ads first, and then Facebook ads? I know that's a huge topic, each of them, but some main points for people to get started, and also for you that stand out that are essential.
Yeah. I would say keep it simple. I very much like Amazon ads in the fact that we can pay for results. So if something isn't yielding results after running it for 1, 2 weeks, we just close it down or we decrease the bids. So I think Amazon ads, that was something that when I started, I think for the first 2, 3 years, we didn't talk about Amazon ads. Some people tried it, but it was a little bit clunky. Now in 2025, I almost would say it's mandatory because it's if other competitors are using it and you're not using it, that means that they are gaining rank in categories for keywords. And the more sales you make, the more sales you tend to make because you get more visibility as you show up more on Amazon when you get more sales. So you have something called customer also bought, where your book will show up under other products and other books that people have bought. So overall, it's a great platform. But in terms of starting out, I would say keep it simple. Learn the basic terminologies. What does ACoS mean? What does CPC means? What does conversion rate mean? And then once you know that, then for example, the ACoS, you learn that it's based on the book price, not necessarily the royalty. And then you figure out, okay, what is the royalty I make per book? What is it my break even ACoS? And then you start small. I would say as a complete beginner, I wouldn't go crazy on the ads, especially if you don't have a big budget. But as a more intermediate advanced publisher, I would start to play around more with going higher bids, especially for very specific keywords that are directly related to your topic. So if you're doing gardening for kids, bid a little bit higher for the keywords such as gardening for kids. And I do keyword product sponsored campaigns. I do product sponsored campaigns. I also do auto ads. And then in terms of for all the books, I do something called lottery ads, which if the viewer wants to learn more, simply search on YouTube and you will find many videos covering this. I think we have a couple of videos as well on that. So that's the main idea behind Amazon ads. That if something doesn't work, if you see a keyword that doesn't work, let's say you spent $20, no sale, close it down. If you see sales but you're not making a profit, especially after a while, then consider lowering the bid. Lower the bid by 5 to 10 cents. Keep going, seeing okay, did it make a change? If not, then keep lowering it until it becomes profitable. Same with the book, and start with a budget that you're comfortable with. I usually start with $50, but you can start with five, you can start with 10. It usually doesn't spend the budget unless you go high bids.
So you're willing to spend $20 as a test, and if no sales, you finally pause that campaign. $20, right? All right.
Yeah, but for I was speaking more about keywords. Maybe I would say 15, 10 to $15
Okay.
per keyword. Maybe consider pausing it. But for a campaign, I would say, yeah, at least you want to see a sale after $30, $40 is spent, I would say. But it depends on your risk tolerance. But if you're not seeing a one sale after $40 spent, I would say that's it's not a good sign. So also the conversion rate, how many people are clicking on your product and product page and buying. If it's below 10%, then perhaps consider changing something, whether it's the book cover, the description, and looking over the reviews and all that.
And you
The
mentioned adjusting your bid based on the A cost. Do you have a sweet spot A cost, generally speaking, that you're looking for while you're adjusting?
I will be transparent. I'm not the one adjusting, so I don't know exactly what my Amazon ads person is doing right now. I hired someone who's been working with Amazon ads, sold millions of dollars with Amazon ads for Amazon FBA. So he's running my ads now. But in terms of overall rules, I think we are aiming for at least break even ACOS, especially when the book has been live for, let's say, 2-3 months. Because one thing to realize is that it's not just the ad that you're making money off. You're also making money on the organic sales. So when you are making, let's say you're spending $5 and you're making $5 back on the ads, but you might also be making another $5 in addition to that because you have now increased your organic ranking because of that ad sale. So I think that's a crucial thing to remember when optimizing the ads and choosing that break even or choosing that A cost that you are aiming for.
Now, I know you delegate Facebook ads, but is there any some pointers that you could share with about Facebook ads as well?
For Facebook ads, I use it primarily to generate leads. So in the beginning, I started the Facebook ads myself. I learned what the fiction publishers were doing, and I just implemented their strategies of using it to generate leads because with the email addresses, obviously, if they are in the target audience, you can use it to get reviews, early reviews, so advanced review copy team, and that was my primary purpose of building an email list with Facebook ads in the beginning. And it wasn't that complex. Now we have the Facebook library. You can check, okay, what are other people doing to build their email list, especially if the ads have been running for a long time. Then you can figure out that, okay, this offer is probably profitable. Can I replicate it in some similar fashion? And that way use it to grow my email list or get more sales for the books, which is another strategy that some publishers are using. They're using Facebook ads as a way to drive outside traffic to then push down the rankings and make even more from their organic positioning. And but in terms of bids, I think I got for $1 per lead, and it didn't really do that much of a difference when I tested the offer. You can check what's working, like I said, but otherwise use a book. It can be a lead magnet. Use some sheet or something. But the thing I like with books is that you are targeting readers. So if you're offering a free book, they're likely to be interested in reading books if they sign up to that lead magnet. So it does make sense to offer something similar of what you want them to experience or what you want to have them do after, which in my case was to read more books.
So you would use Facebook ads to capture a lead, offering a lead magnet free book, and over time through email autoresponders, sell your Amazon books.
Yes, I use it to get ARC readers, so advanced review copy readers. So they get the book for free in advance. So around 1 week before launch, they get the book for free. They get to read it. They get to give any feedback, private feedback, for example, if they see improvements. And then they also can leave a review on the platform then once the book is live. So that's my primary purpose. But also I do promos when the book goes live to the main list for people that didn't decide to join the ARC list. They will get a chance to buy the books, usually at a discounted price as well, for a short limited time.
Now, one thing that stands out about you from other publishers is you scale really big and through having a team and system. Do you have any tips on building a team and system?
When it comes to building a team, I think one thing, especially in the beginning, is to set the right expectations, meaning that it's not necessarily going to be easy. And what I mean with this is I see a lot of people that I talk to, publishers that try to hire for something, but they didn't have a great experience. And I can tell you from my first experiences, I made so many mistakes with hiring freelancers. For example, I remember I hired one writer and he just delivered a copied, plagiarized work Fortunately, I didn't publish it at all. But that's an example of things that can go wrong. And now we have tools in place. And there were tools back then as well. You got Copyscape, check for plagiarism, check for AI. But just go through the process, put out a job post on Upwork. That's my preferred platform. Put out a job post. And then instead of just sitting there waiting for people to apply, do a premium job post and invite as many people as you can that you think are qualified. And then the more people you get to apply for the work, the higher the probability that you will have at least one that will be highly qualified and also a hard worker or someone that will produce high quality work. So that's my strategy, is to have the right expectations from the start. This is not necessarily going to be easy. It's not necessarily going to be fun, and it might even slow me down in the beginning, meaning that I could have created a book myself in the time it takes me to hire this perfect freelancer. But if I continue to do this work myself, I will pay a price in the long term. Because if I take the time now, I take one step back and just find this excellent freelancer, which is out there. There are millions of people out there. Of course, there's someone who can do it to the same ability as you, at least similar ability, and at least one part of the book he or she can do to a similar ability. So just put in the time, find that person, do that upfront work, and then once you've done that, once you've taken that one step back and gone through the frustration, when you find that person or people, perhaps it's more than one, then you take all of a sudden 3 steps forward. Because now, instead of having to use your time to create this book, the next book, let's say, you can use it to do 5, 10, 15, 20 books with this one or two, three freelancers, which is an incredible time saver and also something that in the long run will make it so that you're able to stay consistent as well. Because eventually you might burn out if you're doing everything in the publishing process yourself. It's a lot to take on. It's a lot of quality to really get on point. So I always think that there is someone who can do this better than myself, because to think that I can do everything in the publishing process, the book cover, the manuscript creation, the formatting, the marketing, to better ability than other people, that's not how I see it. So there are experts out there who can do it better. So just get in the volume of applicants, send out test tasks, meaning that you don't just hire, okay, great, I found you, you talk the talk. It doesn't stop there. You still have to test them, because especially I've hired over 700 freelancers. Of course, I didn't keep all of them, but when you go through people, you learn. When you go through freelancers like this, you learn that, okay, maybe less than 50% will actually walk the talk. So they can say all the right things, but many people, their delivery will be disappointing. There will be something that shows up, some family emergency, or they will just ghost you completely, or the quality that gets delivered, it's not on par. And something I saw recently was, I was hiring writers and they were using AI to create the books, which is okay if that's what I'm hiring them for. But in this case, they were using the free version of ChatGPT. It was so obvious that it was just lazy work. And in that case, it's it's about stepping in and being aware that, okay, um, I might have to go through and go through a few people and set the clear standards in the beginning. Okay, if you are okay with them using AI, then how will they use AI? Can you teach them how to use AI in the best way possible? And that way, you might be able to create a better product. But don't have them use AI in the shadows, and meaning that you're paying for writing, but they're delivering AI work. So I think being transparent and in that regard is helpful as well. In terms of working with the freelancers, I would say it's important to give good feedback in terms of give feedback in an effective way. So, for example, don't praise the person, praise their work. Don't criticize the person, criticize their work. And what I mean with this is instead of saying, oh, you're a great writer, say, this piece of work was great because of this, this, and this. So they know specifically, okay, I did this well. Because if you say you're a great writer, what happens when next time they deliver a worse quality product? Will you then go back and say, no, you're a bad writer? Or no. So being aware of people's egos in that regard is helpful. And one way, simple way, is simply to always focus on their work. Okay, you did this well, this can be better. And I think Dale Carnegie, his books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's one of the best books for learning how to give feedback effectively. So start with something positive, give the feedback as something that is easy to correct or something that even you could have done as a mistake, let's say, if you need to bring that up, and then end with a positive note that, okay, let's this will be easy to fix, or you did this great, keep that up, keep that going. So um, I think that's. Did you also ask about systems, or was it primarily hiring?
Team and system. You can make it brief though. The system, like organizing the work. There's a lot of tools out there, Dropbox or Google Drive, and how do is it all in one file? Or you have separate different docs. I mean, just simple tips on systems.
Absolutely. So I'm a simple person. I remember I worked as a salesperson, and I always used Excel. I just colored the Excel in a different way. But then I got introduced to this, I believe it's called CRM software, and it just slowed me down at least 50% because now I had to fill in all this information in this way when my main work was to just dial the number and then move on. So dial as many numbers as possible. Of course, get relevant information, but I could just do that in one cell. I could just write a comment. If I made a sale, I could mark it in green. If I need to do a follow-up, I could mark it in yellow, etc. But with this introduction of this software, everything became more complex. And I think that's one trap I want to avoid as much as possible is to introduce complexity. So if you want a system to run smoothly, I think looking at, for example, a factory. When I was working in the fish factory, how is the system built up? It's just different steps and people at different steps doing the same thing over and over again. It's like they're so good at doing this specific thing. It doesn't require them to think. And that's the kind of system we want, where it doesn't require thinking, it doesn't require interruption, which was what it required when I got the CRM system. It required me to interrupt the calling, which is the main thing, to now move into, okay, software mode. I need to fill in this like this, and then I need to teach these people what this means. So for me, I prefer a simple system where it's Dropbox. People can use Google Drive as well. But the main idea is to have folders and just have different stations. So let's say it's creating the titles. You can have a simple Word document. You create the titles. You add the titles in that Word document, and then the person who's working with creating the guidelines, the only thing she needs to do is to look at that document, take a title, and start working on it. And then once she's done, she just puts the Word file in a folder. Once she's done that, her job is done. She doesn't need to enter something in a software or mark anything. She just puts the file in the folder. And then what's the next step? The next step is that the next person in line, which might be the writer, he is assigned, let's say, um, a certain topic. Maybe I've been the one that have assigned him this topic. And once he has a list of topics to work on, he can simply go into that folder himself. He can take the file and start working on it. or the manager, you might have a manager that simply moves the file into the writer's folders. But in essence, you just want ideally the people to be working in one folder. All they have to do is take the work, deliver the work, take the work, deliver the work, and then the manager, if you want that setup, can move the files around. Or they can take it, so they take the ball, they move the ball. They take the ball, they move the ball. But in essence, that's what you want them to do, is just stay at the same place, do the same things, and keep it simple. Mark it in Excel, mark it in Google Sheets, and just that's in essence what I do. Now, one thing I also do is communication. I believe communication can be inefficient. Some people say communication is key. I think the right type of communication is key, not necessarily communicating for the sake of communicating. So if I say, "Hi, BJ, I've uploaded this file here," that's just a waste of energy, because you should already know where the file goes. You already know, okay, I need. But if I give you feedback, for example, okay, BJ, next time you need to do this better. You did this really well. That's effective communication, because it's useful. So you want to avoid unnecessary communication, repetitive communication, and just keep it simple. So, and of course, you want to remove yourself as a middleman. I'm in the group chats, so I can see if I want to, but people are communicating amongst themselves. They don't have to go through me, because as soon as they have to go through me and I have to then respond and then send the file, then it can take 1-2 days extra delay, just because I they need to wait for me to take the file and give the file, when they could have just taken the file and given the file directly to the person that will work with.
That is awesome advice on systems and really simplifying. One thing I learned from you was I used to hire one assistant to try to do everything. And I learned from you that just one person do the same task, the next person do the next task. It's a lot more efficient and better that way. A couple more
Absolutely.
questions. One thing, let's talk about the future of publishing. What do you foresee in the future that publishers now, like yourself, should know and focus on to succeed in the future? Yeah, so let's talk about quickly about the future of publishing, what to look for, such as AI, direct selling. What do you recommend publishers prepare for the future?
In terms of the future, I would look into AI, but I think a lot of publishers, they go wrong in using AI to create more books, and books at a lower cost. That's their only focus, which of course that's a great benefit of AI. Why not use it that way? But I think you also want to ensure that you're using AI to create higher quality books.
Hmm.
So that's one thing that I think people overlook, is that with AI, you can create images that would have cost you hundreds of dollars potentially to create previously. And you can do a lot of things. You can do better research, you can structure things better, you can go through and you can analyze, you can criticize the text. You can, for example, imagine that the AI is a professional editor or a professional something, and then they would criticize the text, and then you can go back and forth between different tabs of AIs, and you can really enhance the quality. Of course, you're there, or the writer is there, to really see, okay, does this make logical sense? But how I would think about it is, how can we create books that in 2030 will still be selling? They will still be of such high quality that they are the obvious choice. Because if we go back to 2016, I know you were publishing back then as well, I think we can agree that the quality has evolved a lot. And
Absolutely.
imagine if we were to go back with the knowledge and everything we have in 2025, we were to go back and we were to publish the types of books we publish today in 2016. Imagine the position we would have on Amazon. It would be complete domination. It would be real estate on Amazon. Our books would have thousands of reviews, and it would be such a great thing. So I think future also, how can AI agents. I'm not well versed in that, but I do think that that will help in terms of making things more efficient. I think that's something to look into. I also think TikTok Shop, I believe social selling, that is something that will be something that we will see more and more of. I was speaking to a publisher last week. He was making $100,000 a month, and he started in July. So just 1.5 months roughly, and he's making $100,000 a month. That's unheard of before. But that's possible through TikTok, because if you get one video to take off, then you got affiliates as well, and they can promote the book. So that's something that I see in the future as well, taking off. But other than that, I think it's important that we as publisher, we go back to the first principle of book publishing, which is to create books that people want to buy. Because throughout my journey, I've seen the shiny objects, and some of them, they can be gold and they can really enhance your business, but a lot of them can be traps, especially if they're not based in creating value for the reader. Then it's usually a trap. So that's a way that you can analyze the methods as well, as to, okay, does this add value to the reader or the marketplace? Does it add value to Amazon? And if the answer is no, then it's usually not a good strategy. So that's how I see the future.
Awesome. I totally agree. The quality and yeah, focus on quality books that can survive in 2030 and beyond. Um, Now you got introduced to, you got started in teaching, and you recently created Driven Publishers Elite. Can you talk a little bit about that, how you got into it, and then how people can find you?
Absolutely. So I think I started the Driven Publishers in the spring of 2024, and the purpose was to. I read the Alex Hormozzi's, I think it was $100 million leads, and I got inspired to create a personal brand. And I thought, what can I create a personal brand about? I'm passionate about fitness. I'm passionate about self-development. I'm passionate about many things. And sure, I can start talking about working out and things like that. I even became a personal trainer, and I started my own gym, and I did that for a while. But I realized that that's a red sea, meaning that there's so many people that are doing it, and my experience is not that unique. It's not that helpful compared to my experience in book publishing. So book publishing, it's also, I was a little bit bored at book publishing, but I also knew that this would be a way to reignite the passion, to start talking about publishing, and also a way to connect with other publishers. And I think that because of my experience, I was able to help a friend. I was able to make him get results. So I proved to myself that, okay, you can provide value in this specific area. And I made some videos. In the beginning, it was quite low effort. I was just recording as I was walking, but people resonated with the message, and I kept making the videos, and it was fun. And in terms of teaching, I don't see myself as a guru. I see myself more as a participant in the game, meaning that I'm in the trenches. I'm just as interested in learning strategies and implementing the strategies. So not just learning the strategy and then teaching the strategy, but I want to go there and I want to test it out. Does it work? Does it not work? And what are these publishers doing over there? And what can I learn over there? So I think that's more how I see myself, is not necessarily as a guru, but someone who's in the trenches. And that's what I appreciate with Driven Publishers Elite, especially, is that we have that mastermind component where it's not me having a lecture. It's more so we are talking about publishing, and everyone who has something to add to the group are free to add it, whether it's through the group calls by answering the questions or elaborating on topics, or if it's through adding a video series to the knowledge base, which several publishers have done.
Right.
And yeah, so that's it.
Awesome. So how can they find out, what website is it, and what YouTube channel should they visit?
They can go to drivenpublishers.com, or they can go to the YouTube channel Driven Publishers, or search for Peter Holmquist, and they will find it.
Thank you, Peter, for this interview. It was a great conversation, a lot of valuable lessons, and I'm going to watch it, and I highly recommend everyone watch it again and take notes, and definitely join Driven Publishers Elite and follow his YouTube channel and school community. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, BJ. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Las Vegas as well.
Awesome. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.